In 1991, regular divers found something strange, a submarine sitting where it shouldn't be. What they discovered over the following years would change history and bring up scary new questions. Because when they finally got inside, what the divers found in the crashed Nazi German submarine will shock you. This is the real story of U-869, and it starts with a puzzle at the bottom of the ocean. In the black, rough waters of the Atlantic during World War II, death could strike without warning from underneath. German U-boats hunted under the water like sharks, quiet and hidden, destroying thousands of Allied ships with ruthless accuracy. These submarines were Hitler's fear weapon at sea, blocking important supply lines and leaving behind wreckage and spilled oil. Out of the hundreds of U-boats sent out by Nazi Germany during the war, most were destroyed, some were taken prisoner. A few disappeared completely, and one of the strangest of all was U-869. Built in 1943, U-869 was a Type 9 C/40 U-boat, one of the biggest long-distance submarines made by the German Navy. Almost 250 feet long and armed with 6 torpedo launchers, it was built to cross the Atlantic and attack enemy ships far inside Allied territory. Its job: cause trouble, destroy targets, vanish. U-869 was led by Captain Helmut Neuerberg, an experienced Navy officer. In late 1944, as the war started going badly for Germany, U-869 was sent on its first fighting mission. The plan, based on wartime papers, was to go to the Gibraltar area, an important narrow passage where Allied ships squeezed through to the Mediterranean. But the German command was a mess by then. Communication mistakes, mixed-up orders, and a breaking chain of command. People believe that U-869's mission might have been changed while it was traveling. On February 11, 1945, a U.S. destroyer and a Coast Guard ship reported attacking and sinking an unknown German U-boat near Gibraltar. The official report marked it as a confirmed kill. Based on timing and expected U-boat movements, the Allies decided that the submarine destroyed that day was U-869. The German Navy, beaten and broken apart, gave no opposing story, so the case was closed. U-869 was thought to be sunk off the Gibraltar coast, taking all 56 of its crew down to a watery death. No survivors, no emergency calls, no evidence. For decades, nobody questioned this version of what happened. It was one line in the huge, bloody record of World War II, one more enemy sub that never made it home. But when you look more carefully, the story begins to fall apart. First, there were no confirmed photos or sonar pictures of a wreck near Gibraltar that matched the size or shape of U-869. Wartime reports were famously unreliable, often based on what people saw during chaotic fighting or guesses made under pressure. The Atlantic was enormous, the technology basic, and errors were normal. Second, no German paperwork from that time ever clearly said where U-869 ended up. By 1945, Germany's war machine was collapsing. Radio messages were lost, records were incomplete or destroyed. The few logs that survived were often unclear. Some experts now think that U-869 may have never even made it to the Strait of Gibraltar at all. And there was another more frightening detail: the radio silence. German U-boats had to report during missions, both to confirm their progress and to get new orders. U-869 was last heard from while still in the North Atlantic, thousands of miles from where it supposedly died. After that, nothing. Silence, as if the ocean had swallowed it completely. For over 40 years, U-869 stayed an unsolved mystery. Ghost ship lost in time, buried in conflicting reports and fading memories. Families of the crew had no grave to visit, no wreckage to mourn, just a name carved on a memorial and a wartime file that didn't quite make sense. The North Atlantic off the New Jersey coast is a cemetery of steel. Under the waves lie hundreds of wrecks, victims of storms, crashes, and wars. For local divers, it's both playground and puzzle. But in the summer of 1991, a group of wreck divers found something unlike anything they'd ever seen. John Chatterton, Richie Kohler, and a small team of skilled Northeast divers were looking for unknown wrecks using side-scan sonar. About 60 miles off the coast of Point Pleasant, New Jersey, at a depth of 230 feet, their sonar lit up with an image. It was a long, narrow object, shaped like a torpedo, lying on the ocean floor. Something made by humans, something old. Curiosity became obsession when they made their first dive on the wreck. The structure was partly buried in sand and tangled in decades of fishing nets. A few passes around it confirmed the obvious. This was a submarine, a big one, and it wasn't supposed to be there. They couldn't see any hull numbers or markings at first. The structure was badly damaged, its tower partly collapsed, and its outer shell cracked. It was slowly rusting into nothing. Was it American, Russian, German? Nobody knew, and that's when the divers gave it a nickname, U-Hoo. U-Hoo was a puzzle that challenged logic. No known World War II-era submarine had been recorded as lost anywhere near this spot, and yet here it was, resting quietly under the waves for nearly 50 years. The dive team started a series of return trips. These were not quick dives. They needed special gas mixtures, careful slow rises to the surface, and detailed planning. Inside the wreck, they found German gauges labeled in metric measurements, pipes, valves, and instruments. It was clearly a German U-boat. But which one? The breakthrough came when they found a butter knife, tarnished but whole, carved with the name Horenberg. Not a model number, a man's name. This changed everything. Using Navy records and crew lists, the divers traced the name to crewman Georg Hugel Horenberg, listed as having served on U-869. The divers kept searching, both underwater and in the records. On a later dive, they recovered valve parts and diesel engine pieces with serial numbers. They traced these numbers to shipyard records from Deschimag A.G. Weser, the German company that built U-869. The pieces fit. Against all odds, these civilian divers had identified the mystery wreck. In 1997, 6 years after the first dive, the United States Navy officially said that the submarine wreck off New Jersey was indeed U-869. The meaning was huge. U-869 had not been sunk near Gibraltar, as U.S. military records had claimed since 1945. It had died off the American East Coast, a full 3,000 miles away from where history had placed it. When salvage divers confirmed that the wreck off New Jersey was, without any doubt, German U-boat U-869, a new mystery came up. Why did it sink? Two main theories appeared. One, U-869 was destroyed by its own weapon. Two, it was destroyed in battle by U.S. warships. German torpedoes in World War II were powerful, but they were far from perfect. Among their many problems was a terrifying malfunction, the circle runner. A torpedo designed to run straight would, because of a broken gyroscope or control surface, curve into a wide circle, eventually looping back toward the very submarine that fired it. The result? Suicide. Supporters of the circle runner theory believe this is exactly what killed U-869. They argue that after firing a torpedo, the weapon went off course and circled back. The wreck shows major internal blast damage consistent with a torpedo explosion close to or against the hull. Another theory says that U-869 was found and destroyed by two U.S. Navy ships, the USS Howard D. Crowe and USS Coiner. According to this version, on February 11, 1945, the two vessels detected a submarine in the area and launched a coordinated depth charge attack. But this explanation brings up difficult questions. The wreck location doesn't exactly match the coordinates reported by the U.S. ships. Sonar scans showed several torpedo tubes were still sealed. If U-869 had fought in combat, why hadn't it fired its weapons? When divers spent more time exploring the sunken German submarine, the evidence they found told a confusing story. The front part of the sub was badly damaged, crushed, and bent by some powerful force. Some rooms inside had caved in, which suggested a blast from within the submarine, not from a bomb dropped from above. This made it seem like there was an explosion inside the sub, maybe a torpedo that blew up while still inside its launch tube. What made things even more puzzling was where they found the crew members. The bones showed that nobody had tried to escape through the hatches. There was no attempt to bring the submarine to the surface, no signs they tried to make an emergency escape. Whatever happened was quick and brutal, catching everyone off guard. For many years, divers had explored the wreckage of U-869, facing the same dangers and limits. But in late 2024, using better equipment and more careful planning, they finally reached a part of the submarine that had been impossible to get to before. Believe us, what the salvage divers discovered inside the sunken Nazi German submarine will shock you. It was a sealed room, partly collapsed and almost completely rusted shut by water pressure and decades underwater. According to dive team members who agreed to talk only if their names weren't used, this area had probably been untouched since U-869 crashed to the ocean bottom in 1945. Inside, they found what one diver described as a perfectly kept piece of history. The room contained personal storage areas, locked boxes, and footlockers that were still in one piece. Among the items they brought up were the usual things you'd find on a Nazi submarine: food cans, record books, and clothes. But then they discovered something much more unusual. Things that immediately caught the attention of history experts and intelligence officers. People familiar with the investigation talked about finding a ceremonial knife that belonged to a German Navy officer. The blade reportedly had a motto carved into it that was used by elite naval groups. Next to it, folded in a waterproof box, was a German Navy dress uniform that still had the Iron Eagle symbol and a red armband with a swastika on it, kept in better condition than anyone thought possible. But what came next amazed even the most experienced researchers. Hidden under layers of sealed papers wrapped in waterproof cloth was a box of Nazi items, including a perfect swastika flag folded with military care. With it were propaganda flyers written in English meant to upset Americans, and what looked like a partly coded instruction book with marks from the Abwehr, Nazi Germany's spy service. The discovery was so unexpected and so politically dangerous that it was never told to the public. The reason for keeping it secret: the chance that U-869 wasn't just patrolling the Atlantic Ocean. It might have been sent to drop off spies or materials on American land. This theory hasn't been proven, but the possibilities are frightening. Of the 56 men assigned to U-869, everyone was thought to have died when the submarine sank sometime in early 1945. But there was one name not on the final death list. A man who was supposed to be on board but wasn't. His name was Herbert Gushewski. Herbert was originally given a spot as a crew member on U-869 while it was getting ready to leave port. But because he got sick before the submarine left, he was taken off the mission. Another sailor took his spot. U-869 sailed away without him. For decades, Gushewski lived believing the same thing as military historians, that U-869 had been lost near Gibraltar. Then, in the 1990s, American wreck divers started reaching out to family members of the original crew. Their work led them to Herbert, living in Germany many years after the war, but still remembering those he had trained with. According to diver and researcher Richie Kohler, Herbert didn't believe it at first when told that U-869 had been found, not off Spain, but off the east coast of the United States. But the proof was clear. The divers showed him photos of things taken from the wreck, including personal items and a knife carved with the name of Georg Hogel Hornberg, one of the crew members Herbert had known. His sickness had kept him from sailing with the crew. When asked how he felt about the discovery, Herbert was reportedly touched but quiet. He recognized the strange luck that had saved his life and felt sad about losing his former teammates. Herbert died in 2005, and he never learned about the sealed room. Or maybe he already knew about it, but didn't want to talk. Against all chances, these regular divers had figured out what the mystery wreck was and proved something that no wartime records ever did. They had actually found and identified U-869, showing it had died 3,000 miles from where history said it was. But the mystery wasn't completely solved. The big question still remained. How did U-869 end up off the American coast? Was it sent somewhere else? Did it get new secret orders? Or was there a communication problem that caused it to go off on its own? No records survived to answer that question. The German Navy logs were incomplete, and the men on U-869, every single one of them, had died with the submarine. Finding the sealed room with its Nazi items, propaganda materials, and spy documents only made the mystery deeper. If U-869 was carrying materials for secret operations on American soil, it would explain the radio silence, the unexpected location, and the secrecy that surrounded its mission. A grave had been found. History had been set right. But the real story of U-869, what it was doing off the American coast, what secrets it carried, and why it died in silence with its weapons never used, remains one of World War II's most haunting unsolved mysteries. Did you enjoy this story? Did U-869 sink due to a tragic mishap, or was it on a secret mission that history chose to bury? Let us know in the comments below. If you like the story, subscribe to this channel and leave a like. Even in history's darkest moments, the truth tends to rise, if someone dares to search for it. Thanks so much for listening. See you in the next video. Have a great day.